I should be live now. This is Interzone for a open source intelligence stream regarding the O9A, ONA, order of nine angles, whatever you wish to call it. And it's be sort of one thing. If people can't hear me well, let me know. I can change. Need to retweet. It on Twitter. Now, I've been a little bit sensational, I know, with this, as I have stated, at least on Twitter, that I'll be divulging information not public about the ONA, and I will be doing so. Okay. Hi. With regards to reading names of people, I'm going to most likely not read out people's names who prop up. I'm happy to read what people write, but that's for security reasons, as the live chat will be, depending on who shows up, probably deleted after the video has been published, and to keep certain people from being sort of who might want to talk to me but don't particularly want to draw too much attention to themselves. Yeah, most likely that will happen. Anyway, to be sensational, I will wait a little bit before I actually drop anything heavy. I'm doing this because this is kind of I wouldn't say an emergency situation, but a situation that needs to be talked about quickly, which is why I'm doing this. In the future, I'll be doing things a little bit more tactfully, I guess is a good way to put it. I have prepared a lot because I have to make something perfectly clear. I'm not responsible for whatever people do with the information that I'm going to be giving. I'm in no way responsible, and usually I'm worried about the OPSEC side of things, of the intelligence services thinking that I might be actually proliferating terrorist propaganda, all that shit. No, I'm more worried about people who are fanatically trying to be or be finally meet that person to bring them into the real O9A or ONA. Those people are the ones that and also the Martinet Press edgelord Niners and people in the middle ground might disagree with things I say. I don't care. By middle ground, I'm talking about I'm going to be having to go through pretenders is the best way to put it, because the situation has become so out of control with pretenders, especially since Chloe. Hey, and probably Chloe publications. The worst culprits of pretenders, a Professor O9A, are Not so much the Martinet people, but people who give just enough of the real information as to legitimize themselves, and then I call these people like Chloe. What I always forget her stupid name. I have a lot of mixed information about this woman. Oh God. Where is it? Sanctioned by Chloe 352, outer representative, order of 9 angles, 123 YF. Text by Anton Long and Christos Beast. They give just enough of the real information in these books. However, there are many major discrepancies between pre-Chloe and there was another outer representative. There's never been an outer representative of the Order of 9 Angles, ever. Never. Another one I have is sanctioned by Joel, outer representative, Order of 9 Angles. One of my contacts, if you're watching, can you privately let me know if you know who Joel is? Jall. These 2 books I have. Yeah, Chloe Ortega. Same fucking person. I'm not 100% if that's their real name. Let's see. I need evidence of people's... and I'm also not here to expose people's real names. Hi, XR. You asked me a question, but subsequently either you or YouTube deleted it, and I accidentally read out your name. I apologize for that. I'm trying not to do that. But you asked me whether I believe the Order of 9 Angles is a defunct organization, as certain order people claim. No, they are not defunct. Not at all. But what they are is something very, very, very different from what people would assume. They are defunct at the same time, okay? Message retracted. I don't know who you are. You're most likely somebody associated with somebody I know. But you asked the question, I'm answering it from my perspective. All right. The ONA is essentially a small collective of individuals within the Oxfordshire region of the UK. The Remnants are a term I use to refer to my older O9A contacts. And by older, I mean, I'm not going to be divulging who any of these people are ever. However, they are all in their 60s to 70s. Okay? And I know who some of these people are. Do you believe in God? David Myatt says something interesting. That something I'm going to misquote him, and I apologize for that. But he said something about being... What was it again, Dave? He is only... I've woken up quite early, so I'm trying to get unscattered, but he is only accountable to God himself, something along those lines. And I guess I agree with that statement. Doesn't mean I believe in God. That's up for interpretation. I'm not a Christian. Used to be a Muslim. but this is not about me. Okay, so to the remnants, and the sort of legal disclaimer, I'm going to be giving information out that is going to disparage a lot of people who are aspiring to be part of the real ONA. By real, I mean the collectives that are within, no worries, that are within the Oxfordshire region of the UK predominantly. I don't know if it's all one collective or if it's two or three. It's made up of individuals. That's the only ONA. Okay, everything else are and almost the controversial thing is almost everybody is going to be disqualified from ever becoming ONA. However, that does not mean you can't make your own groups utilizing material. You don't need to travel to Oxfordshire and run around autistically asking people, "Hi, are you David? Are you Anton Long? I have a crystal tetrahedron. Can I join the O9A?" They don't recruit. They don't recruit. Anybody who claims to be ONA and say that they are actively going to try and recruit you are pretenders. And the worst culprits to me are not so much Martinet Press, which you all know my perspective on them. The worst people are the Chloes, the O9A.org people, the people involved in Fenria publications, modern Fenria publications. They put just enough of the real stuff in there. They use the O9A brand, okay? They are amoral opportunists who want your money. That's all. These people have no insight into what the ONA is, other than the most basic shit. Now, I've been contacted by a lot of people naturally because of the controversial nature of my work and how I operate. I will talk to anybody, right? Now, I can't divulge who I've talked to, but I've talked to a lot of very prominent people, including people involved in these different middle ground, as for lack of a better word, pretenders. And I'm not going to be naming names as it's very unprofessional, but they have tried to very unsuccessfully manipulate me because they had a false interpretation that I only have maybe one or two contacts who they're at war with, because they wanted that brand to be under their control in order to make money. And when the heat gets on these people, because they are amoral opportunists, the risk after the Ethan Mauser trial of being arrested, a lot of these people subsequently disappeared and or deleted all their material and or possibly denounced O9A. I'm in the same danger as these people, and I'm not even involved. Yet, I'm not deleting my stuff. I'm still doing what I'm doing. Yeah, dropping a core belief, you change over time. But dropping core belief systems, right? Suddenly, after Ethan Mauser gets 45 years or whatever it was in March, suddenly dropping an entire core belief system. And some of these people who have done this tried to manipulate me unsuccessfully just before, like I'm talking about days before denouncing O9A. Okay, that's all I can say on that, which is very interesting to me. Now, I used to be a Muslim and I was sincere in that. I was one for years. However, I still I still have a undeniable soft spot for Islam. I still do some Islamic practices out of pure fucking habit. I still perform wudu. I still do sort of dua incantation type things. It's been very difficult to stop saying, you know, inshallah constantly and alhamdulillah, mashallah whenever things happen, because I was surrounded by Muslims for years. In 2020, I became extremely disenfranchised. However, it wasn't until 2020, and then I didn't denounce Islam. I did apostatize. Most of that was due to my divorce. The core belief system was still in place. That has changed. You don't just drop something overnight like that some people have done. You do that because you are scared. And these people had no information. All they did was talk about trying to use very, very basic manipulation methods. The MICE acronym being a good one, involving the intelligence services. MICE, now acronym, a device used in counterintelligence training to remind trainees of the 4 general motivators that could lead someone to commit treason, blah, blah, blah. The MICE acronym stands for money, ideology, compromise, and ego. Ego was the thing that they tried to use to turn me against. And, you know, I'll get to comments in a moment, but I need to say this, to turn me against my other contacts. But they didn't realize that, no, I don't just have a few contacts. I have a network. The things that you see maybe 5% of the work I actually do. I spend sometimes having to correspond, writing usually between 2,000 to 4,000 words a day. That's how much work is involved in this, in the background, and discerning if people give me information and it checks out, and then it checks out with other people and with material that I have been, that I know is, I don't like using the term legitimate, but I'm just going to have to use it for lack of a better word. Then I am able to go and run with it because it all checks out. It might be, you know, very, very biased. The motivation does not matter. I'm just here to give information to the public and do my job. That's it. Anyway, I will go into things. It's an ego trip. The adept is beyond these abstractions. Yes, it is, but yeah, the ego of these of the pretenders who have contacted me, who will probably be too lazy to watch this. If they're not, you know who you are. I'm not trying to delegitimize any of you for personal reasons. It's purely that it has gotten out of hand. Everything has gotten out of hand. People need some transparency in ONA, so I'm going to give it. These people are incredibly pretentious. Not the ONA, but the ONA are straight with you. All right? You want to know a real niner? Guess what? You're never gonna know that they're a niner. All right, you got people in the highest levels of. I'm going to sound like Maury Terry here. Maury Terry, with regards to, I know I'm being a bit intense, but that's for a reason. You know, with the Process Church of the Final Judgment and all that stuff, running around Berkowitz, connecting this satanic network across America. Well, guess what? He is right. he is right, but he's wrong at the same time. But that idea was before its time. A new satanic panic has come, and the O9A are directly through pretenders and through accelerationists and through the work of the FBI, directly responsible. But there is a network of people who are ONA, who are in the highest positions in society. You might be studying at a university, and your liberal professor who goes on and on about social justice, political correct bullshit. This is not to put a paranoid perspective out there. I'm saying that I know there are people, I know people, and oh God, the amount of information I have. If the BBC had the shit that I have, they would. It just. Anyway, I'm making a point that you're not going to know that. You're not going to know. People involved in academia, people involved in all kinds of things, are ONA, but very small. The ONA is tiny. It's this tiny little group out of most of the Oxfordshire region in the UK. You know, collectives of individuals, collective being a very important word, very, very small, very high functioning people, incredibly brilliant people, in all honesty. The pretenders who try to manipulate me were not brilliant. They had nothing interesting to give me other than talking shit about who they think is manipulating me or they're having sectarian bullshit with. But they were, you can tell in 2 seconds. O9A are simple. They are straight with you. The older generation, they're a little bit more. By that I mean the people in my contacts in their 60s and 70s, people who, and I'm not saying this to say that David Myatt is O9A. I'm saying that people involved in O9A, like Richard Moll, who were personal friends with David Myatt. Naturally, these older people in their 60s and 70s have connections to British neo-Nazi movements that came off the British National Party, like Combat 18, the NSM movement, both David Myatt, Column 88 before that. You need to know your history to even understand any of this stuff. And that's why nobody is going to understand ONA for the most part. No, next to no one. It's a futile effort on my end. People want this shit. People, I'm inadvertently promoting fucking Iron Gates. People tell me that Myatt is boring after people who have pictures of themselves with framed photos of David Myatt whilst holding M4A1 carbines, and then actually can't even read my interview or watch the video because they find it boring. They want me to talk about Sutter. I have no interest in Sutter. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. Sutter is a known FBI informant. David Myatt is possibly the most interesting person in the world alive at the moment, because most interesting people have passed. All right, I will go into some of these things, and I will go into information that I have to very carefully disseminate. Let's see what people are saying. I'm not going to be reading your names for operational security reasons. I remember back in 2016, all of them ever involved. From my understanding, O9A is an infiltrated group for the most part. But what is the real O9A? Yeah, I'm going to explain what that is. There's a good book, hard to find now, and unfolding. Yeah, I know about that one. Vices. A friend of mine owns that book, and I only took a 2-second look at it, and essentially just went, yeah, this has some signs of being legitimate, however, it lacks references. And I might be wrong because, as I said, I only took a 2-second look. I have so much information, I don't have time to. It is just more. A friend of mine was asking me, "Is this legitimate? Is this legitimate? Is this legitimate?" And so I can't comprehensively say with that one. I looked at it. It has I learned a lot of old Greek stuff in there, and things that do check out, but the lack of referencing. These people are very academic, extremely academic in the way that they publish their material. He is a solo adept, and the book is his journey through spirituality. That's what I assumed, and so good for him. Free advertisement for the Temple of Blood. How kind of you. Yeah, I know. This isn't my book. It's a friend of mine. I haven't even read it. I flipped through. Just lots of rape, and it's just written. It's really embarrassing, and the babies on spears shit, which nothing in that book is. I've seen dead children in real life. I've seen people killed. None of this kind of shit is all that edgy. Like, go to the developing world and embed yourself in some of their communities, and you're going to see a lot of shit. Trust me. It'll be a great detriment to your health, though. But maybe from a ONA perspective, doing something like that might be character building. But there is a limit to what one should put themselves through. And I'm somebody who does not fucking limit that at great detriment to myself. Anyway, are they all racist? Depends on your definition of that. I've been surrounded by, for instance, I was married for years and surrounded by Muslims, and I never had issues with Israel, but most of the issues with Israel and Islam is due to Ibrahim, or the Prophet Abraham, according to Jewish and Christian perspective. It was Isaac that was to be sacrificed, and the propagator of the tribes of Israel. Muslims know it was Ishmael, the Arab line. So the Arab line are the chosen people. The rock on the temple on the masjid in Jerusalem is meant to be that spot. Anyway, that's one of the big issues. Also, in the early stages of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad SAW was converting a lot of Jews. However, there was a betrayal of a group of Jews later on down the line. And also, which also contributed, also the anti-Semitism in regards to Islam. Arabs are treated pretty terribly by before the Jewish diaspora, even when, for instance, a good example of this is Herod the Red, or whatever his name is, an Arab, whom is the one that was meant to kill Jesus when he was a child. But the real guy, he rebuilt the second temple for them. He and I am not anti-Semite. I have a friend in Israel who's Jewish, and I'm just saying there's a lot of reasons, and also the Quran, although it is a death sentence if you change any word of that, Salafism has infiltrated most Quranic Sunnah publications, and it does seem like they may have changed things a little bit, because I have Qurans from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia from the 60s, given to foreign diplomats, and their perspective back then was very interesting. Even though, anyway, then after the 70s, it quickly became very, very, very Salafist. Or the mystical elements taken out, the commentaries changed. This is, as you can see, this is what I mean by pretenders. I'm somebody who is a apostate to Islam. Muslims have, by all rights, the legitimate right to murder me. Yet, I have not even gone into O9A properly yet, because I've been sidetracked by Islam. You see, that's how much, when you have a core belief system ingrained in you, it is very, very difficult to detach from that, even after you apostatize or denounce in the O9A context, because you legitimately believe or believed. And that's why people who keep denouncing it, yes, you can change your belief system, as I have, and it's constantly changing, but I'll never stop having a love for elements of Islam. Anyway, back to ONA. Are they all racist? The majority of them are mostly towards anti-Semitism, and a lot of it is going back to because, in all honesty, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism have absolutely no connection to Europe. They all originated in the Middle East. They're not as Europeans. They're not in Christianity came out of a pretty insane movement in Syria. These are not native European religions. We were pagans. And the other problem is the majority of books written about pre-Christian Europe, paganism, specifically in context to, say, Nordic mythology, were all written by Christian monks. So the trustworthiness of any of this, if you want to, so Europe has essentially been raped by a Middle Eastern religion and our culture destroyed, and then they adopted elements of it in order to, when killing us, whilst killing us, in order to more easily coerce people into it. It was a ISIS-style takeover. And that is why Europeans are in a state of absolute de-evolving trajectory for a long time. Anyway, so we were Sufi Muslim back in the day. No, but this is not about me. But yeah, I guess you can say. But to be honest, I was probably more close to a Salafist. Even though Salafism is very against Sufism, but majority of Sufism is all bullshit. My ex-wife's second, after her father died, her mother remarried. He was a Sufi and an exorcist, and he died just before I met the woman. And apparently, he told her, I got to see a lot of his material. You want to see? No, I don't have it with me. I have little word squares, all in Arabic, that involve jinn to make money and things like that were given to me. I still have them. Somewhere I have hundreds and hundreds of pages dipped in stuff similar to abramelin oil that are sort of based upon planetary and sort of Islamic astronomical magic by this man. Anyway, I'm getting off track. He has an interview with David Myatt in his other book as well. The interviews with David Myatt, I very much doubt. He is one of the most careful and prudent individuals you could ever come across. I think the most amazing thing with my experience with David Myatt is the first time he casually spoke rather than formally. And that was very interesting to see what he's like outside the context of an interview, and where he just casually is verbatim, giving me information. I still have connections with. I've still been in communication with David Myatt since the interview because of some other work I've been doing that involves things that he has in-depth knowledge of. Mostly trying to put together history of Combat 18. And as I'm not in the UK, it's doing all this is very difficult to get connections to the original people involved, Charlie and Steve Sargent, etc., etc. Anyway, okay, I'm not going to go into that. What do you think of the Hebdoman way or the numinous way? I'm not going to put my perspective on that. Let me put it this way. I respect Myatt's work, and I respect also the work by the likes of Richard Malt, who I have been very neglectful of. I've seen and to explain the context of Richard Malt and Christos Beast is a very difficult concept. Yes, it is the same person, but Christos Beast is not Richard Malt. Christos Beast is the individual involved in ONA. Richard Malt is him as Richard Malt. This partition is very important to understand ONA. Now, I've been neglectful of him because I saw him as problematic for a long time. Because, like Martinet Press, things can be, which is extremely accelerationist and deliberately so. And some of Christos Beast's writing can be considered that way. However, also I've not had adequate information on the man that's why I've never talked about him. However, now I see him as somebody I need to not only look into more, but address, because I do not see him as problematic anymore, which is the reason why I deliberately have not talked about him. He is not problematic at all. Now, I'm going to making the statements now that is the purpose of this. I'm not responsible for whatever people do. Also, this is the perspectives from not one contact. Everyone, the pretenders think, Thorman 15 on Twitter or whatever, is my only contact. Hanrahan seems to believe the same thing. No, I have a lot of contacts. And it's a far more complex situation than what one might think. All right. I'm awake enough now to do this. I'm going to be giving the perspective of the remnants and of not just the remnants. So you've got to remember the legitimate ONA that I am referring to. Now, I don't know because if it's all the same collective in that Oxfordshire region, or if it's a few separate ones that are operating there. However, they all have this perspective that checks out, and they might have and operate in different ways. The older contacts of mine in their 60s to 70s operate differently than, say, people closer to my age group do. Collective is an important word. Anybody using the word Nexion, is, and you know, you could be a legitimate ONA group doing your own thing. That's fine. I'm though focusing on the collective, the real people, real ONA, which I'm sorry to say, none of you who are aspirants will ever probably have any chance of being a part of. They don't recruit. And even if, so stop running around Oxfordshire desperately trying to find them. Stop thinking that everybody like me is some insight role who's a conduit to, you know, getting you into the real ONA and all that stuff. I am a complete outsider. Complete outsider. I didn't even know ONA existed until probably September last year. I've been in contact since January with the group I call the Remnants. So now it's been, in 2 days' time, it will be literally 6 months exactly since I was in this. My entire trajectory changed. Okay, so don't fucking kill yourself if you realize you might not be what they would see as this is going to be very difficult. Anyway, I need to get this information out there. The fact that people contact me constantly thinking I am and this is mostly because of people like Hanrahan, who, and my own fault because I make a lot of stupid jokes. I can't help myself. Anyway, okay. What is the ONA? What are the Remnants? What is a Nexion? To understand any of this shit, there are no Nexions at the moment that I know of that operate. A Nexion is a literal temple. The word means gate. However, in the context of ONA, it's multiple things. A Nexion is a literal temple. Because there is no literal temple, there is no Nexion. However, a person can be a Nexion. Do you understand me? A person can be one. So, because right now there is no Nexion, both the Remnants and the other groups, collective, or most likely part of the same, they call themselves a collective, usually spelled with a K. That's anybody referring to themselves as Nexions and all that shit, they're not involved in any of this shit. Flat out. I've known this for a very long time now, and yeah, anybody actively trying to recruit people are not ONA. If you've been recruited into anything, it might be ONA in the sense of following the tradition. However, it is not you're not in the collective, all right? And yeah, I'm talking about the inner circle, yes. Okay, so I finally going to explain this stuff. Now, this is all public knowledge. I know I said that this is not, but all the information is out there. It's all public domain. You just need to be able to find it. You need to be able to learn how to work through all the bullshit and see, you can tell in 2 seconds what is legitimate once you understand things a little bit. So anyway, with regards to this and my work, this is not about me. All I care about is the quality of the information. All right, so how to best put this? All right, so the O9A is to put it quite simply, and simplicity is the key to all this. The ONA is not a traditional movement. Yeah, they're not a revolutionary group. They're not a group whose perspective is, it might sound very conservative, but once you understand, you realize the reasoning behind it. They are a evolutionary group. All right. So to put that into context, a revolutionary, for instance, is somebody, maybe a neo-Nazi or a communist, who wants to cause some form of coup d'etat or political revolution. But when they're in power, nothing changes. They just replace the old, and the cycle continues. It doesn't expand from that into something bigger. An evolutionary is somebody who might have similar kind of ideas but they're all about actual changing. And Satanism has always been focused on an observing of nature and how it operates. And even cringe pussy Satanists who want to be publicly acceptable, natural law, all that kind of stuff, LaVey shit. A lot of it is observing nature and how it operates, and then cross-transferring that into human beings and societies. And if any of you have ever heard of the mouse experiments that were done, I think in the 70s, amazing insight of sociology and human psychology. They created essentially cities for mice and forced them in there and wanted to see how the rat utopia is exactly what I'm referring to. Now, at the beginning, for instance, deviant behavior and things like that start to happen, especially, and this is not my perspective, I'm just giving you the truth, on homosexuality and on anything like that, in the rat experiment thing, whatever it was. All of a sudden, a lot of the male mice who could not compete with the very small amount that were breeding started to become bisexual. And the experiments just ended horrendously. And it is a brilliant example of the de-evolutionary trajectory not only Western society is going through, but essentially the modern contemporary world. We are in a state of de-evolution, which is what the rat utopia, mice utopia, or whatever it was, is brilliant example of. And yes, we're not rats, but you observe those patterns, And then you cross-transfer that in a sociological context onto the past sort of 50 years, you start to see parallels. So the O9A has a very, very evolutionary perspective on things, on both a political context of aeonic change that actually evolves rather than just revolves over and over and over again, which is revolution, which is the problem with communists, reactionaries, the far right, all this stuff. And they have the perspective on observing nature, in a sense, and human behavior. So I'm going to outright state a direct quote from a ONA contact about homosexuality, word for word. And trans and gay people whom are desperate to be in the ONA, who have contacted me, I'm sorry, I have not given you this information yet. It's just been a case of how the hell do I do this to limit possible damage control, because people are very, very, very dedicated. And my advice to people who are gay, trans, etc., who might want to be ONA and have potential, right? Do your own thing. I'd recommend nobody actually try and seek anybody out. As I said, they don't recruit. How do you get in? I'm not going to tell you that. That's their business. Do your own thing, for fuck's sake, okay? The system is all there. I can't give direct links to PDS. However, I can recommend I like Costia, but out of the publicly well-known books, this has a lot of legitimate material in it, but it's more on Praxis level. Naos is the best. Absolutely, that's what I recommend. Don't buy it from Martinet Press. Go and find editions of it in PDF format that were published prior to 2012. The copy that I refer to is from 1980 something. Publication. Anything, and don't go and spend a ridiculous amount of money on it, on trying to get an old copy. It's all in the public domain. All of this is in the public domain. Everything that anyway, to quote on homosexuality, quote, the concept of the ONA is a purely natural one of self-discovery. And I personally believe that homosexuality is a manufactured causal delusion. Put it simply, if the ONA is about evolution, that implies a gradual procreation, also something impossible in homosexuality. Furthermore, there is a reason why the balance of magical partners includes the master of the temple and the mistress of the earth. You cannot have both. Homosexuality and transgenderism was a edited in concept by Chloe, in which she edited classic ONA manuscripts to include gay versions of specific rituals and rites, which can be easily proven since copies of the before and after manipulation copies exist. End quote, ONA contact. This checks out with the Remnants perspectives. Doesn't mean you can't be, ONA. You're not going to fucking find them anyway. start your own collective. Even though I'm going essentially to war with people who have done that, they are ones who have done it for either amoral, opportunistic, financial reasons, and for their ego, going back to the MICE acronym, or spook infiltrators and informants like Sabbah. The ONA is now... It's amazing that a small group of people running around in a very sort of specific area, in a very small group of individuals, ended up having that hijacked to such an extent to where now entire careers are built upon talking about them, myself being essentially inadvertently one of those people. It is now an international, global thing. No, it's not. It's a very small collective. Okay, how else to explain things? Also, if you're online, I'm not going to refer to you by name. Please message me anything you might want me to say involving evolution and the perspective, because what I say is my interpretations, which are... It's far better to just get it straight from the person themselves. What I wish, if you're watching, to know is the evolutionary perspective, what needs to be said. All right, so I'm going to give an example of... And also, I'm going to be breaking a story in this that people do not know about. From my knowledge, the only people who know about this are people directly involved. And it's to do with certain pretenders and pedophilia. All right, so I'm going to use myself as an example of an ONA perspective. Now, I've never asked them whether I would be ONA material, because that goes against the direct interests of being a journalist, an outsider. So this is speculation, and I might be wrong. But this is... All right, so in many ways, I'm unwillingly in a state of de-evolution myself. And ONA sees the current paradigm as being in a state of terrible de-evolution, which I absolutely agree with. The modern world is absolutely devolving. They want to change that. Now, I was a morphine addict, and I have medical problems, epilepsy being the main one. Now, what is the ONA perspective that I can glean on that condition? Now, great men have had epilepsy in history. Julius Caesar and Napoleon and Dostoevsky being very good examples. But look at the likes of the dynasty that Julius Caesar created. His dynasty was a degraded nightmare. Epilepsy is genetic. It requires me to be on barbiturate medication at all times. From an evolutionary perspective, epilepsy may have some mystic association with brilliance, right? But unless that can be definitively proven, has no traits that would be useful to keep in the genetic future, thus causing suffering generationally. For every person of brilliance with epilepsy, I assume 1 million will be of average to even lower intelligence and potential. for non-genetic based epilepsy is usually the result of traumatic brain injuries with permanent neurological degradation. No accurate test exists. My epilepsy is genetic. But no one in my immediate family has it. If my extended family do, I don't know. Most in Serbia, and a lot of them are dead, and civil wars and all that shit. So anyway, so I hope you never know. If a test of genetic epileptics shows from some evolutionary benefit, say a staggering intelligence and brilliance, then that might be evaluated. Now, this is extreme. The state of the world is in such a de-evolutionary trajectory that would probably put such minutiae to the sideline, but it is necessary that I be on strong barbiturates and benzodiazepines 24 hours a day to be able to not have constant absentee seizures, myoclonic seizures, atonic seizures, as my medication has stopped tonic-clonic seizures and the frequency of aonic and myoclonic seizures. I still have absentee and visible tics caused by rapid myoclonic seizures jerking me. It causes facial tics, and according to neurologists, I am the most effective individual at hiding epilepsy and controlling associated tics they have ever met. Now, because of my background, I could not show what might be perceived as weakness, as it would have gotten me killed, both in situations overseas and given a cyclical morphine addiction and given association with gangs and criminality in my youth, and other reasons, I could not show weakness. And hence why I've been very effective at controlling, even though it is not, I'm not in an ideal situation with medication. So those jerks and things like that, and facial tics, like doing something like that uncontrollably, that's because I'm not on enough of the barbiturate. Anyway, why am I mentioning the? I'll keep that part out. I'm trying to use this to help illustrate a aonic perspective on how ONA might think about something like this. And so anything essentially that goes against evolution, hence why I have inserted myself in epilepsy, is something that is a consideration. And as I said, I have not asked directly if my need to be on, essentially, being on barbiturates, that's how bad it is. Benzodiazepines, clonazepam, for instance, is not strong enough to control it. I have to be, and I'm still on clonazepam, but I have to be on extremely strong barbiturate medication because it's the only thing that has actually worked. What do you think that does to my mind? Having to be on constantly something that can cause, in long-term use, specifically benzodiazepines, dementia and stuff like that. And it has amnesic effects. You do get tolerant and used to this stuff as sedation, but anyway, that is minutiae. But if you want to be in the real thing, which you won't be unless you do it yourself, these are the kind of considerations that are taken. This is not just some group of a magical group. This is a group of, and by the way, they're not pretentious. They are extremely polite and absolutely brilliant at being concise with information. They are epitomers. They condense things into the most simple form, and that is ONA. Another example given to me is with regards to the evolutionary perspective of ONA and to simplicity. There's famous quote: "Genius simplify, idiots mystify." Fire was used as an example with one contact with regards to this. Something very simple to create initially absolutely changed humanity. A very, very and think of what has built upon on fire. Just the simple ability to create fire on an evolutionary level. It has led to a almost fusion-like chain reaction of building upon that until it has become something that has created complex things. And that is what ONA is about. Nothing. I like to use that misquote of Hasan-i Sabbah that William S. Burroughs pushed. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. That's not an ONA thing, that's associated with chaos magic. Anyway, that is a good way to look at things. The ONA build upon previous material. They make it simple and build upon that. It is a collective of individuals whom are all acting independently with loose association. It's changing and in a state of constant change. The older generation, or the remnants as I call them, they have a perspective based upon because ONA works on a person-to-person basis. They have operated with me in a way that they would probably operate with a adept. And because the older generation, a lot of them are in academia, a lot of them in these kind of positions, they're very much operate in a way similar to how a lecturer might operate with a postgraduate student, sort of giving guidance. However, they are, as a direct quote, which is probably misdirection, anarchists. They give me information and don't care what I do with that information. The majority of it I have yet to even, like, I have hundreds and hundreds of PDFs, stacks of paper that are of important things that are this high of printouts. Intelligence servicing watching. I've never distributed any of this material. This is purely, as a journalist, I have to go through it. Now, they did not bombard me with this. It was an incremental building upon from a very, very basic connection to revealing a little bit more, then seeing what I do with that, and then a little bit more. So to answer the question of a certain individual who denounced the O9A recently, no, they did not bombard me with information. They did not just give me everything as a means to, quote, essentially make it very difficult for me to navigate this. No. That's not how they operated. If you were part of it beyond the most I would say you were on the most loose association possible. You would know this. Good job trying to manipulate me. Didn't work, did it? I'm not as naive as one might think. And also, Hanrahan, I'm not as naive as one might think. I'm not having people running circles around me. Those people trying to do that are all gone now. They deleted their accounts. They disappeared. They denounced. And Hanrahan, if you're watching by any chance, the old ONA, the Remnants, they hate you because of your treatment of David Myatt and the way that you communicate with them. And it's mostly because of the way you have treated David Myatt. The other ONA, younger generation, mostly don't even really know of your existence. And neither did I when I first got made that joke that caused you to accuse me of being a neo-Nazi O9A propagandist posing as a journalist. How they see it is, yeah, you've been fucked with. And the Remnants are fucking with you because they're pissed off at you because of their personal association with Myatt. Not saying Myatt is involved in ONA, but many of these people were involved in neo-Nazi movements with Myatt. And Richard Malt is a very good example of this kind of thing. To quote somebody, Hanrahan, you are running circles around yourself. The reason is they don't like speculation. Most of your contacts have no association with the actual thing. You are in a prime position where you'd be able to get access in the way that I have. However, your confrontational nature towards these people is the issue, and that's why they won't talk to you. And the people who will talk to you are, I guess, what I would call accelerationists who have no association with ONA. Temple of Blood and all that stuff, I don't know how anybody at all can even see that as remotely legitimate. Same with the Atomorphin. All of that stuff. They purely infiltrated, and in the case of Sata, who most likely was way more than just an asset for the FBI. They are manufactured pretenders who have deliberately radicalized through ignorance people into this edgelord ONA look. Doesn't mean that the ONA doesn't have a edgy look perspective on the world. Oh, they do. But it's sophisticated. It's concise. It's simple. It's not embarrassing and over the top and accelerationist. It's detrimental to the collective for these organizations to use the brand ONA and capitalize on that either financially or through means like Sata, both financially and to entrap vulnerable, disenfranchised young men into something that is appealing to many. And as I've said, people want me to talk about Sata. It speaks volumes of the situation we're in. Now, I'm also going to break a story. I just have to ask something, and I will get. Is the homosexuality version of that ritual? Yes, it's a forgery. Then they all died. Crazy stuff. Lots of parallels in society happened. Yes, the Rat Utopia is a very, very ONA kind of way of cross transferring that into society. Hey, yeah, the temple was infiltrated. Yes, but the temple was of blood was manufactured from the beginning. There were people sincere, most likely, in it, but they were being used as they had been played. If they were writing about some Sapphic stuff in the Deerful Quartet, they were the Deerful Quartet. That's Richard Malt. Hold on one sec. Oh, so I'm going to see, because it's getting late for them, if one of my contacts is. Okay. Are there any black metal band members actually associated with the real ONA, or are they just a bunch of posers using symbols and such? I used to play in black metal bands back in the day. I don't know modern bands. I don't know what they're doing. I was never really a big fan of the Norwegian scene. I preferred the French, especially. My favorite was Deathspell Omega, a French avant-garde black metal band, very secretive. Miko Asper being the most prominent member of Deathspell Omega, with regards to him being the only one who is famous. I would highly recommend looking into Miko Asper. He's a fascinating character from Finland. And anyway, I don't know. The Chrysalis Beast, yeah, ONA. Other than that, I have absolutely no idea. I would assume edgy black metal bands these days are the same as they were in the beginning, just doing what is essentially profitable, and once more profiting off the image of the ONA. But I would highly recommend Deathspell Omega if you like black metal and stuff like that. Their work between 2004 to 2018 in particular, when Miko Asper was involved. They're not ONA, but they're what I would call existential Satanists, and looking at a lot of Christian concepts from a existential Satanistic perspective, which is the form of Satanism that I essentially was and still kind of am. You know, the lyrics of my favorite song, chaining the catechin, which I'm probably pronouncing very wrong. The catechin is means something that withholds. So the song is essentially called Withholding the Withholder, and the catechin withholds the Antichrist. So if you withhold the catechin, then the Antichrist is free, essentially. So it's a very, very complex, sorry, not complex, very, very sophisticated title where, and that tells a lot about what this band is and how, and they're a very different perspective from ONA. But just that title alone, next to nobody knows what the catechin is. And a quick glance at that just seems cool. No, it has a very, very deep meaning. And if you're somebody who withholds the withholder, you have control of when or if you release it. In fact, I used catechin quite a bit as an alias in the past, even though it's the thing that withholds the Antichrist, which is bad from a theistic, existential, satanistic perspective of looking at this shit literally in a kind of in an existential manner. Having the power to, though, stop withholding, to me, was the key. Their lyrics are things like, in a place beyond all resistance, devouring the roots of the bush of fire, forsaken even by the crows, the dream of the abortion of Babylon shivers. Very, very interesting stuff. They get very existential. And have a lot of references to things. My favorite musical project, album names such as Monumentum Requires Circumspice, sort of plays on Christian quotes. That one being a builder of a certain cathedral. Monumentum Requires Circumspice being a deliberate misspelling of what was it again? Something, you know, if you seek his, I'll actually look it up, I'll be good. If you seek his monument, look around you, which is the epitaph of Sir Christopher Wren in St. Paul's Cathedral in London. I think I've been there, actually. Anyway, if you seek his monument, it's a play on look around you. Anyway, they're very intelligent. I think they've sort of recently, because of alleged, of course they had neo-Nazi connections, specifically Nico Asper. I don't know if they denounced him. If they have, I'm very much disappointed, because they shouldn't do that at all. Anyway, most black metal are a bunch of posers, absolutely. Wonder why they mentioned A.A. Morian in their response to the Iron Gates article in ONA, even if they were convicted of the rape of that girl, which goes against the code of... Okay, I'm going to go into the pedophilia thing. Look at people associated with ONA, right? Publicly. I'm not saying that these people are members of ONA, but people like David Myatt, who is inexplicably bound to ONA now because of hysteria. Any history, any pedophilia in him? No. Look at Richard Malt or Christoph's Beast, if you prefer. Is he a pedophile? No. The pedophilic and stuff. The ONA are kind of prudes in a way, and Myatt especially. Now, from a satanic perspective, why would you care if a pretender group is doing things associated with pedophilia if you don't care about anything other than your own journey? Well, it's simple. It comes back onto you because they're using it. Puts more intelligence services onto your collective. And one of the biggest problems is the lack of transparency in the remnants, because they have because of their perspective, which is mostly based upon something that Anton Long writes quite a bit about, but I'm going to use the one they gave me. Because of my Islamic history, and because people like Myatt, who was a Muslim for 10 years, and because it's all a person-to-person basis, they would just send me something, little links to a PDF of a book. And one was an Islamic scholar, Islamic sociologist. I mentioned this multiple times. It was their interpretation of a concept called Asabiya, which was part of an amazing book by a man called Ibn Khaldun. And the book was, I'm going to link, I can do this because this has absolutely nothing to do with propagating any form of extremist propaganda. That's the book. They sent this to me and it broke my fucking computer when it was over 170 megabyte PDF. And they gave me it in Arabic. And they gave me essentially the original. Because ONA have a very learn it yourself perspective. Go to the source. Very influenced by Myatt with regards to him being proficient in Old Greek. Very rare, especially even among Greeks. Old Greek is rare. I've only met a few who Old Greek Orthodox Christians who knew Old Greek. Myatt. But yeah, I ended up finding a translation of it by a Jewish scholar. I asked them if they thought that was legitimate. They said essentially yes. However, they have a certain perspective on it. But I'm going to really simplify it because genius simplify, idiots mystify. Asabiya, in our ONA context, and has a way of explaining it to me in a way that makes sense, is sort of almost like a 40-year cycle. An organization, for instance, like the ONA, they begin and they have a rapid rise of success, then a slow decline, and then after approximately 40 years or so, a new thing will be ONA will be born from that, and it will be better. So the non-interference policy that the remnants have put in place is very much their aeonic perspective on things, of not wanting to interfere with the development of this better new ONA that will come from their corpse, essentially. However, Martinet Press, ONA.org, Fenria Publications, all of this shit has, and Chloe, and since 2012, gotten so out of hand that some of these people are now in a situation of having to interfere, in a sense, because of how out of hand it's gotten, thus it distracting from the actual ONA that is operating younger individuals, that is brilliant, though they don't particularly want attention. It's better that than Martinet Press, Sata, Temple of Blood, all of that pretender stuff. It's better people understand than so. There's something that I've been recently given information of. I'll break it now. There's a game called Roblox. Comment if you know about that video game, please, because this is actually seriously extremely important. This involves children. This involves pedophilia. You play it frequently. You play it. Thank you. Okay, that video game, as you all are aware, I wasn't, because I am old and don't have any fucking reason to until now. Roblox, and I've been given definitive evidence of this going on. The reason I am not able to show it is I don't want to jeopardize the safety of children. Roblox right now is being used by pedophiles to essentially groom and recruit and also by certain types of people, mostly psychopaths, whom like to indirectly kill people in a way in which can never be traced back to them. And vulnerable young people, teenagers, pushing them to suicide or things like that. Now, there are people claiming to be ONA who are recruiting teenage boys. And this is why I must really, really push this. Don't fucking contact or do anything to any of these people, because I'm not telling or showing, because most of these accounts are run by children whom think edgy teenagers, 10, 11, 12-year-old sort of age. They use the boys to, say, recruit into the O9A, and of course their knowledge of it will be purely Martinet style Temple of Blood bullshit. So pedophiles are doing that, using the boys to then get to the girls, and then grooming them, blackmailing them, doing character tests. Everyone thinks the system of the ONA is this paranoid mess of you'll be an op. If you don't pass a character test, you'll be labeled an op and I'll kill you. Yeah, you can do that. But mostly that's not going to be beneficial to anybody involved. So morally, yes. But they're very, 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 very straight with you. ONA don't fuck around. Anyway, with Roblox, what they're doing, have I ever got catfish? I wish. No ONA goth girls. I don't think if I push the Martinet stuff, changed my appearance, things like that, probably. I do have some, but I can tell that they're most likely underage. Not going to contact them. Not going to reply to any messages from people like that. It's unprofessional and it's creepy. I'm not fucking Rick from Rick and Morty, whatever that Justin, well, whatever his fucking name is. I think you're cute, honestly. Oh, thank you. So sad, no goth girls. Yeah, where am I? Nine, you know. But yeah, I do have some who follow me, but too young. In ones that are probably 19, that's still outside my age range. But yeah, if I made myself more edgy and all that stuff, but I deliberately hide a lot of things, tattoos, things like that, which are visible, but yeah. But anyway, back to the pedophiles. My putting my ego aside, and yeah, what they're doing essentially is recruiting the boys to get the girls to then send them child pornography, because the girls think they have to do that to be in ONA. This has become a terrible problem, and there are a plethora of fake of pedophile accounts. I can't show this because most of these accounts are cat paws, or how should I put it? They're children who are mostly teenage boys who are doing it on behalf of the pedophiles, because teenage boys think that they're getting into the ONA, and the pedophiles are going through them to then have the 10, 11, 12-year-old girls more comfortable, and then slowly groom them. And it's come to a point where they deliberately get them to self-harm, cut themselves, commit suicide. It's really, really dark, and not at all surprising that people utilize things like ONA to commit these kind of crimes against essentially children. So this problem of pretenders this is why I am trying to be as transparent as possible on what ONA is, because I the damage being done by Martinet and ONA.org and all these other people has now led to ONA being used to do terrible things to children, which, as a direct consequence, the collective or collectives in the UK, this is not a good situation for them. Having been ONA and having these people, and as I mentioned earlier, people that are generally associated with the ONA or O9A, even though Myatt is a complex situation, but the best two examples are Myatt and Richard Malt. Neither of them have any history of pedophilia or any of that shit. So these Temple of Blood pretender types are really a problem because of how this is going to come back on the actual collective, because the name itself is being used, and for the same reason it's being used for profit by O9A.org and Fenria publications, purely for profit, no insight, purely amoral opportunists. People, it has gotten out of control. And I am inadvertently directly involved now because I've been dragged into this. So I have to make my position very, very clear. And so if you're ONA, if you are in a Nexion and you're doing your own thing, good, do that. Even though unless you have a certain very specific protocols, I very much doubt you would be able to, should be using that term Nexion. But still, anyway, do your own thing. And don't, it should be your personal thing. You shouldn't be trying to actively use your mystic system to it's meant to be a secret fucking society. If you're an occultist, you're meant to be secret, for fuck's sake. But majority of people are fucking idiots. Anyway, if you know anybody who is using who's very young and using things like Roblox and stuff like that, whom might have interest because of the sensational nature of Temple of Blood, and I was an edgelord teenager too myself, so no actual ONA is actively recruiting. So and pedophiles who are not associated with ONA, they're just fucking pedophiles. They if getting to young girls who are disenfranchised through means like Roblox, is they will use whatever is the current thing that is the easiest method to manipulate and sexually abuse and get away with it. And yeah, so Remnants and Collective, they are very, very, very against this, and very have done extensive investigations into this. But it's such a sensitive issue because these accounts are mostly manipulated children, which is why I am going to cover this, because it needs to be covered in the future, because they need to fucking warn people about what's going on. I know Roblox has got sort of neo-Nazis doing similar things, but they're most likely just same situation, using whatever ideology is going to be the easiest to get to the victim. And yeah, it's very sensitive because they might, if these names get out, these kids might be told that they failed their character test, they're an opfer, you need to commit suicide, especially regarding the 12-year-old boys and stuff like that used to get to the girls. And from what I know, people these pedophiles have led to people committing suicide, have led to a lot of child pornography being produced, have led to blackmailing, have led to really, really, really dark kind of stuff, and direct evidence that has been shown to me of all this, of what's going on. And that's something. You see, this is real ONA is actually going out of their way to try and stop this. So, Sutter, I'm sorry, but you're I open a page and it's fucking rape of a child. Good work. Anyway, I've heard about this happening on many games. Just the grooming, yes, of course, yes. But this, I'm bringing this up because this directly involves people. So the perspective on pedophilia and ONA. Look at the Wikipedia articles and all that trash. It is in no way something. Yes, they're Satanists. Yes, they have a very individualistic based, very dangerous perspective on things. But it's all evolutionary, and this goes against it. And it goes against the direct interest of themselves to be associated with people like that. And people who like the edgy sort of ONA stuff, these people, the real ONA, are edgy. They're fucking dangerous because of how high functioning they are. They are, if you to sound like Mauritania, they have infiltrated the highest echelons of academia and other areas. It's amazing. You have people who privately will talk like, oh, you know, the Zog run media and all that kind of stuff, then going and lecturing students on third. This part here is me being hyperbolic, but you know, lecturing students on third wave feminism and openly supporting anti-fascist groups when they're cosmic Reichsvolk neo-Nazis. Not all of them, but you know. So yeah, I don't want to name these people because that doesn't benefit anybody. I'm not against any of this. It's just about information. So it sounds like some schizo posting paranoid fiction. But this is why ONA to me is so interesting, because they are actually dangerous. Sutter and all them aren't dangerous. They're just fucking stupid. Temple of Blood is stupid. The Atomorphism is embarrassing and stupid. It's pathetic. It is in no way edgy at all, because you're not fucking doing anything that actually makes a difference, that actually changes the evolution. All you're doing is de-evolving and in fucking degeneracy. You're fucking pathetic. Grow the fuck up. You are not in any way, shape, or form the real fucking thing. You're a pathetic fucking joke, because you have no danger to the systems of control. If you were, you wouldn't be part of any of that kind of thing. You wouldn't be allured by it. It's because you are stupid. And yeah, amoral opportunists like O9A.org and Fenria publications. You know my position. I've been in contact with enough of you. I would recommend not coming back because you're probably putting yourself in danger. I don't like what you've done because you further distorted the actual reality of the situation. So the reality of the situation that I know it as being, yes, it is biased. Yes, I am forced to take a position and take sides. However, I am trying to give the information that is actually what it is, to demystify these amoral opportunists, pedophiles, edgelords, idiots, and informants and assets. If that people see through all of this shit, majority will go, ONA is boring. Like people say to me about David Myatt. The ONA will be able to do their own thing. Yes, they're dangerous because they are actively trying to, through infiltration, change society. Other groups, such as Thelemic organizations, the more Aleister Crowley side of things, yes, they have the Aeon of Horus and all of that stuff, but they don't directly, the Ordo Templari Orientis or the OTO, they don't directly try and, because they should. If you're familiar with Crowley in the Book of the Law, the Ordo Templari Orientis is meant to be a military organization for the religion of Thelema. In a sense, it is. They should be like fucking Mujahideen in Iraq and back in the day, Al Qaeda in Iraq under Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. They should be running around with. You should have OTO pictures of guys with AK-47s wearing grade robes, etc. But they don't do that because they have watered it all down, and the lame people from my father's generation. My father is exactly the same age as David Myatt. The lame hippie fucking people have done everything to go, oh look, we're not some satanic sex cult, even, and Thelema is not satanic at all. But the OTO should be doing this kind of stuff. They're the boots on the ground. And there's the AA, which the Alticol, which is where the magic element is. They're different. And I won't be going into them. They have connections with OTO. They are much more secretive, so I do not know if they are actively doing anything to try and destabilize or change things, because they are run as a decentralized intelligence organization, essentially. Anyway, I'm probably really pissed off a lot of people if they watch this. But it's the truth. You read the Book of the Law. You read, and this is why ONA, to me, as an occultist, is so interesting. The real ONA, because they're actually doing the shit that groups like the OTO should be doing. They have a different perspective. They're neo-Nazis. They don't like the gay stuff, whereas the gay stuff is actually a lot of people in OTO who are gay left in Australia because of being treated quite badly, which is interesting given Crawley's history. But I'm going to read you one thing, if I can find it. One of my favorite Aleister Crowley. It's just a few paragraphs, but it pretty much perfectly explains the thelema. And it's very embarrassing that, and this is why ONA is such a big deal, is because they're actually doing it. They're not being. All right, this is Liber Oz. Sorry, Liber LXXVII. This is just one little page. Ignore the blood on my phone. And this sums up what thelema should be and was meant to be. Mostly quotes in the Book of the Law. All right, so the law of the strong, this is our law and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that and no other shall say nay. Every man and woman is a star. There is no God but man. Man has the right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to work as he will, to play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how as he will. Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, carve, paint, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will. Take your fill and will of love as you will, when, where, and with whom you will. Man has the right to kill those whom thwart such rights. The slave shall serve. Love is the law, love under will. Aleister Crowley. That's what thelema is supposed to be. Yes, it is Liber Oz. You have the essentially consent to kill anybody who would thwart any of those rights. So OTO, what are you doing? Why are you legitimizing yourself by becoming religious organizations where you're now under sanctions, where you have to follow government law? That's not the law. Shiva X, King of Australia. Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm going to get into trouble for this. But yeah, so I'm from a very thelemic perspective. I'm not ONA. But that's why ONA to me is so interesting. The real ONA, not this Martinet bullshit. It is very interesting because they are actually doing it, not just not trying to, oh, we're just, we don't allow drugs in the OTO and all this. We go and we eat pizza and have movie nights. You're meant to be the military. The reason why Freemasonry or Masonry, I'm sorry, Masons, I know you do not refer to yourselves as Freemasons, you're Masons, yeah, I know. Secondly, OTO. Why these fraternal organizations are failing? Because young people are not interested in your hippie bullshit anymore. Lon Milo Duquette, you have done great service to thelema with books helping explain the Book of Thoth by Aleister Crowley. You've done great service. However, there is things have evolved. We are not the 1960s and 70s anymore. What you're doing now, OTO, is in the direct disinterest of Thelema, making it look all New Age. You're drawing the wrong people, and you're failing because of this. The people whom, like myself, disenfranchised occultists, who are the real thing. You're not getting you people like us because you're a dying organization. And all this is doing is bringing people like us into ONA. And I'm not ONA. I am not associated with anything other than the most loose association with things like OTO, loose association with Islamist groups, and through journalistic purposes, loose association with criminal organizations and things like that. That's it. I'm not affiliated with anything. And this is the most controversial thing I've ever done. I want to make it very clear. I'm just somebody who used to be a journalist and has been involved in other fields that I mentioned before, involved in intelligence earlier in my life, and did not expect to ever get back into journalism. But the opportunity was opened up and I couldn't. And it was just, wow, this is too big. I need to do it. And so independently, that's what I'm doing. And as you can tell, I'm much more intense than usual. It's because I have been working nonstop on all this stuff, getting all this information, talking to people. I'm exhausted and it's dark. It takes a toll. So naturally, I'm going to be very soon. For a little while, I need to take a break after this stream, probably for a week, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm having to write usually 4,000 words in correspondences a day. Then on top of that, material, talking to people, all of this stuff. I love it, but you can only do so much. And so thus, after the stream, I will absolutely take some fucking time off. But transparency is needed. So people involved in Australian OTO, I'm sorry. This is the reason why you're failing. People, Masons, this is why you're failing. And then, sadly, the brilliant people are being lured towards the O9A. However, they're not being lured towards the real stuff. They get some of it like Hostia and go, there's a lot in this that's really good. A lot of people involved in Thelema. And they like myself, are like, wow. And then we find Iron Gates. And as disenfranchised occultists and Martinet Press, we go, as one friend of mine, a direct quote, Martinet Press is the most effective method ever created at stopping people from from becoming ONA who actually have potential and are a danger because of their ability to maneuver within society from actually becoming ONA. Because if you find Martinet Press and you just go, this is embarrassing, I don't even want to be associated with this. It's the best deterrent, the best means of killing it. And it's taken over. And that's why ONA is so important. And I disagree with a lot of things, and I am never going to be ONA. I need to make that perfectly fucking clear. I am not ONA, but I operate in a way that is different from modern journalism, which is why I've been given access, because I've never leaked anything, nor have I ever betrayed the trust of my contacts. Okay, so the Edward Snowden of occultism. That's a compliment, I think. What did Snowden really reveal? Nothing. Just some footage of some guys in a high intensity situation, seeing a news van full of people where you have to make a split-second decision, so you shoot them with your 33mm chain cannon. Boom, 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 boom. You're at fucking war. Things like that happen. War is bad. Yeah, that's Snowden. Just you want to trust somebody who's NSA, glorified in that fucking horrible movie as a hero. He did legitimately leak shit, but it's changed nothing. Does it involve eugenics, the evolutionary perspective? Eugenics is not particularly... Yeah, it involves genetics, absolutely. Eugenics and modern genetics, and especially with regards to ethnicity and race, is very biased. And certain things are deliberately put out as misconceptions, like people say that, for instance, somebody with blonde hair and blue eyes, that's a weak genetic trait, in a sense. No, it's not. I have a friend who is the most Aryan person you could ever meet. Like blue eyes, blonde hair, everything. His grandfather is Sri Lankan. Yet he can pass as an ideal Nazi, and his father was not a Sri Lankan British, occupier. He was a collaborator with the colonial establishment. So he's brown skinned. So my friend's grandfather is essentially completely a dark skinned Sri Lankan man. Yet, if I bring him to Combat 18, back in the day, when I knew they would have accepted him in 2 fucking seconds. So if blonde hair and blue eyes is such a weak genetic trait, why is my friend more Aryan than I am? See, now I'm starting to sound like Vag Veganes, but yeah, genetics would, of course, has a perspective in the O9A or the ONA on an evolutionary perspective. That's why I mentioned my problems being a genetic problem. I mentioned epilepsy. Genetic epilepsy, meaning I have a high chance of transferring that down to generations. And so is that something that's why I went through the whole thing, which I won't repeat myself. People can watch back. And I am going to make videos going into a lot of this stuff. This is just an emergency sort of thing, especially with the pedophilia stuff. I want people to be very aware. Do not go and try and find these accounts, because most likely it will be a proxy account by a young a child whom will be told to harm themselves and probably kill themselves if the pedophile feels threatened that they're going to be exposed. Okay? So don't go out looking for this shit. All I can say is it's been investigated and something is going to be done. And I'm going to see what I can do to help with that situation, with regards to what I can do to, as a journalist, to expose it. Okay, so your view on Thelema seems to promote accelerationism. The common view is that part of the Liber Oz and the third chapter of the Book of the Law are polemic, a test, not serious. I disagree. But, you know, Crowley was very shocked by it, by the third chapter of the Book of the Law. However, the Book of the Law is, in the Thelemic perspective, absolute law. Not a word can be changed. If you have when you're in communications with people involved in Thelema, it's always, if they're not doing the lazy, 93/93, 93 at the beginning of a message, and then 93/93/93, which refers to do it there, which should be to hold the law, love is law, love unto will. 93 being love and will in gematria and Old Greek and things like that. So the numerical value of it is being utilized as the most sadly lame. I know I use 93 in all my stuff. I probably shouldn't, because I'm probably pissing off a lot of people involved in Thelema, and it's now kind of embarrassing because Thelema publicly is become lame, not necessarily Thelema in the context of AA. I'm not going to comment on that. Yeah, but we already knew that we're having this. Oh, thank you. Thanks. 007, John D. Yeah, 007 is a direct reference to Dr. John D from Enochian Magic. Dr. John D was Queen Elizabeth's court astrologer, and he was a doctor, and he and a man called Sir Edward Kelly, via scrying, ended up bringing probably the most amazing, probably the only thing we could ever have evidence that there might be something beyond material that exists, because they brought an entire language, a magical system, essentially, inadvertently, via scrying, and it's very interesting. Enochian magic also is something that I have been involved in, and Enochian as a language is something that I use. If I do something with the Goetia, I don't say anything in English. It's all the Enochian, because there is just something to it. And I don't care what that something is. If it works, it's irrelevant trying to find the meaning. All that matters is results. But yes, 007 is meant to be this, the 2 zeros and the 7. Looking. That was the code Dr. John Dee used when he was running around Prague and all these other places high up in other countries' aristocracy for Her Majesty's Secret Service. So he was an intelligence officer. Almost all major occultists have been intelligence officers because back in the day, all the aristocracy wanted to were interested in all this stuff. So you could easily maneuver from place to place without being suspected of being either an intelligence officer or an asset or a spy. The same thing these days for the past 500 years with missionaries. I mentioned this before with Jesuits in Japan. It's a great example. Read the book Silence by Shizaku Endo. Brilliant book. Brilliant movie too, but the book goes into what the Jesuits did, which was essentially they used targeted Japan and the port of Nagasaki, because that's where all the trade was happening, to try and destabilize the Dutch East India Company and the Protestants' sole trading with Japan. So by converting them to Catholicism, and at the time the Portuguese had a vast empire. The Portuguese, who were the original Jesuits, converted and then incited a rebellion of something like 300,000 in the Nagasaki region, and Japan rightfully put it down and then got rid of Christianity as much as they could, not because it's a danger to their Buddhist, Zen or Chin Buddhist and Shinto and Taoist. I mean, the Japanese were amazing. They had 4 perspectives on things. They were Confucianists, Taoists, Buddhists, and Shintoists, and they ran them all simultaneously. Christianity was put down because the Portuguese were using via the Jesuits as intelligence officers, trying to create a proxy war in Japan to then destabilize the trading regions. Why didn't they go to Kyoto? Why did they go to Nagasaki? Yeah, Nagasaki is the obvious location a missionary would go to, but why stay there when Kyoto is the people you'd want to go to? No, they stayed in that region to destabilize and to cause rebellion. And missionaries for the past 400 or 500 years, they do this. And it's common knowledge that spooks pretend to be traveling bishops and things like that for churches, because it enables them to move between countries and cities without being suspected as easily. It's apps. So yeah, John Dee was a spy. Aleister Crowley was also either an intelligence officer or a intelligence asset for MI6. Essentially everybody, because and spook infiltration or utilization of occultists, the majority of practices in human intelligence or HUMINT have come from different methods utilized by secret societies, because HUMINT is intelligence tradecraft never changes because people don't change. They fundamentally operate the same. I mentioned before that in the most pathetic, not pathetic, in the most undistinguished manner worked for intelligence for a period of about, with regards to the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. I was a contracted intelligence operator who did human intelligence on banks and loans departments in particular that I would infiltrate. I mentioned this before. Yeah. I finally mentioned it in my last stream that yeah, but that was purely financial intelligence. All I did was do surveillance on the in my car on the outside of the loans department, see who's going in, see who's coming out. I'll be on the phone to the Australian Securities and Investment Commission's my handlers. I looked poor. I looked like Euro trash. I wore only Adidas. I was a fucking train spotting, shaved head, just a little bit of hair, skinny, poor, squat, fucking Slav stereotype. Didn't have glasses either. I looked like absolute Slavic Euro trash, which is the only reason I got pulled into this that work. And I would then go in and go through the entire loans process with everything being fake. And it would be mostly me pretending to be like, even though I was very young, I need to get married. I need, so I need to buy a fucking wedding ring, all that kind of stuff. And these loans were exploitive and illegal. And so what ended up happening is I would back out the last second. First time I did this, and they didn't even give me any fucking training. They just threw me into this. I didn't remember I had to know and remember every person who walked in and out of there. Anyone who had name tags, remember their names, their face, their eye color, hair color. I didn't remember one woman's last name or her hair color. And they were fucking furious at me. It was really, really fucking yeah. And I had to then do an oral intelligence report on the entire thing in my car afterwards. Then I would, over the phone, have to write when I got home and I'd do multiple of these a day. Another written intelligence report. If there was any discrepancy between the written and the oral, I faced 5 years imprisonment. Anyway, I did this. I'm not going to say where or when, but I did it in multiple states. I was the lowest level. I was just a contractor. They would disappear and I wouldn't get any hear from them for ages. And then all of a sudden, bang, 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 I needed to do this with these loans departments. The operation I ended up after 4 years doing this. Okay. Even when my morphine addiction was so bad that some loans departments were attached to pawn shops. So I'd go in and sell borrowed things and then walk in and then do my job for fuck all money, by the way. And then spend it all on morphine. And they even when I kind of went, look, they only dropped me when I was in a hospital because the morphine addiction and really fucking up and having to go and detox. Also, I got into some trouble with the police. And anyway, that was a long time ago. Funnily enough, I use them as one of my main references to this day. And I thought they'd never acknowledge my fucking existence. But they're probably pretty much the only reason I'm able to rent in, good places to live in, because there's such a good reference. I doubt they even know who I am. I'm not going to tell you which ASIC office they were operating out of. Anyway, I had nothing to do with being an informant or anything like that, like Sutter, and I just was somebody who looked and was essentially the part they needed. And so I was pulled from something else by them, and then that's what I did. And they didn't give a fuck about me. I wasn't an asset, though, because I operated as a human intelligence operator. And one of the major ones, operations I was involved in, I'm not going to send you the article, but I got 12.8 million, not me by myself, but $12.8 million in corrupt and exploitive loans were forced to be paid back. And I was directly involved in that operation. So neo-Nazis, I know I may piss you off a lot, but if you believe in the whole Zog thing, and I went and did my little thing fucking over loans departments, I should be a fucking saint. I really, really, no, I'm kidding. So that's my undistinguished intelligence career, which got me work as a journalist, actually. Because when one of my friends was going to off to Afghanistan, I showed up on a lot of morphine and met his uncle, who was a journalist for an editor of the business section of one of Australia's main newspapers at the time. And I'm not going to go into it. And essentially was instantly, he and I started chatting. I had been I was doing a degree in journalism, and he essentially got, much to the hatred of my friend's girlfriend, who had a fucking master's and was a writer and all that shit. I show up and in 2 seconds he fucking hires me to, he gets fucked up with me and hires me to ghostwrite shit for him, which is the truth to the Zog thing, at least. No, not going to go into that, but to quote a Israeli Jewish friend of mine, how the fuck can we run the world when we can't even run our own fucking country? And to me, that is a very accurate description. I have a very different perspective, which I'm not going into. And yeah, so the rest of my life has just been mostly a mess. I've written a lot about stuff overseas. I've warned things was called Paranoid, but all that shit ended up happening a year or two later. So what can you do? What I'm doing now is what I always wanted to do. And oh yeah, cyclical. Essentially what it was is, I mentioned this in an article I wrote about Captagon, which is a amphetamine-based pill, extremely popular in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and has been so for a very long time. But my article was about how the Assad is. I haven't even finished it. I just uploaded the first part, essentially about how Assad used Captagon by flooding it to the Saudis, because the Saudi aristocrats and the United Arab Emirates aristocracy are young men, have nothing to do. You can't fuck because you go to prison for a year if you're not married. A lot of them are betrothed to like 8-year-olds that have been organized, and they're 25 and they're virgins, and so they're not married yet. They're having to wait until their betrothal is of age to be married. So all women are cut off to you pretty much. What do? You drive cars like a crazy person, and you take the Captagon, which interestingly the street name for Captagon is something I fucking love. It's the reverence they have, and I know this from personal experience, knowing people and also being there and seeing it. But well, I can't go into that too much. But essentially, what they call it is Abu al-Halalain, which a very rough transliteration of that is father of the two crescent moons. And Captagon pills have sort of two crescents in them. That's the reverence they have to this drug. And it's just a mixture of amphetamine and a sort of caffeine derivative that has the effects. So that was meant to be a less addictive form of speed than, say, dexamphetamine. Didn't work. This type of speed pills, they're fucking huge. Also in Southeast Asia, especially in Malaysia, where Saudi Arabia and 80% of the Malaysian population are Muslims, Sunni Muslims. Saudi Arabia have their biggest connection. And because in Islamic culture you can't drink, it's completely forbidden. But according to the hadiths, if you can take medical things, if you're not publicly intoxicated, you're fine, you're good. And so, they don't know what these fucking pills are. They just know that when they're doing their crazy driving, and that kills a lot of them, especially in the desert. And out of boredom, these pills allow them to focus and drive more, and they're fun. And so Assad decided to turn them from being deliberately target the two richest Arab countries in the Arab League and flood it with speed, making it in the past few years a problem that is in a scale that has never been seen in Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates. It's only with men. Women, I'm going to write about this in the second part of the article. You know how Saudi women get high? Well, you can't go and find some guy who give you a handful of speed pills. You can't go and get shit prescribed without your man. You So what do you have? Glue and petrol. Yeah. There's a huge problem of Saudi women sniffing glue and petrol. Very, I have to say, very 1970s punk of them. But they don't have a fucking choice in the matter with. So yeah, sniffing glue. I don't recommend because it causes brain damage. Sniffing glue was a big problem when I was growing up. Sniffing petrol too. I tried glue, which it was interesting. Very, very prestigious and professional of me to mention. Very, yeah. As I said, I grew up in a rough environment. Anyway, Assad. The only reason Syria has been reaccepted into the Arab League is because he has stopped the flood of Captagon, which he created. And that was the point of my Captagon article, is why drugs are necessary and why narcotics are illegal and why they will always be illegal. Or under strict prohibitions and prescribed. And also I have problems with pain and things like that. And when I was in the Middle East, it was a fucking nightmare. The kind of the things I had to do, because I had to sit on the floor all the time, eating and meeting with civil servants, etc. And so I couldn't show weakness. But pharmacies were too scared to hold even codeine tablets. So I had to go to hospital, and because morphine is, the doctors are scared to prescribe morphine, they prescribe pethidine. And so I would have to, one time I had such an important meeting that I had to, because they were giving me intramuscular pethidine injections up to 3 times a day. And people with legitimate problems with pain, this is what they have to fucking do. They have to literally go to the hospital, get the injection, and go back to work. And you can't look weak. So what I had to do, and so the doctor understood. So instead of giving me a couple 100 milligrams intramuscularly, he gave me like a fucking insanely high dose of pethidine IV on a drip. I was running out of time, so I took off the fucking thing. They didn't care because they knew that I had to do something important and that I needed this to do so, even though it was excessive. This is how complex the Middle East is because of Islam, and what you can and can't do. And a lot of time you need drugs in the Middle East in order to show that you have that strength. And so it was IV, pethidine, and they were shocked that I could even walk after it. I was fine. Pethidine's great, even though it's more dangerous than morphine. For some reason, pethidine, which is known as Demerol, by the way. Sorry, it's Demerol in America. Forget my audience. It's also Demerol in the Middle East, where I was. But I like pethidine is what the rest of the world calls it. Anyway, it's like a speedball of heroin and methamphetamine almost in high doses intravenously. That's what it was like. So it gave me energy to be able to do what I needed to do, sit down and deal with the chronic pain without looking weak. There was no medical purpose for me to have hundreds of milligrams of pethidine intravenously injected into me. in a hospital 5 minutes away from where I needed to go for a meeting, where a few, some OxyContin, given my tolerance, but still would have sufficed, But there was no medical reason. They could have, but if I didn't do it, I would have had to get a chair, and I would have looked weak. The doctors understood that, so they got me absolutely fucked up off my head on Demerol or Pethidine for this meeting. In the West, under no circumstances would they ever do that. Yet, in a country that was under strict Sharia law and has a Salafist ideology too, that was acceptable, something private. And a good example of this too is Saddam Hussein's son, when he has had an assassination attempt on him. He was shot, and then he had to walk with a cane, was disinherited. And his younger brother was made the heir, essentially, because his father thought he looked weak. When this guy survived getting clipped by an AK-47, just because he has to use a cane, that is what you're dealing with when you go to the Middle East and dealing with the Arab aristocracy. And journalists are a fucking joke with this. I would love to go to Afghanistan to talk to the current Taliban regime. I have contacts in the Taliban regime, which I can't go into. It's not illegal for me to do that. They're a legitimate emirate now. But when they send journalists these days, they deliberately send women to talk to the Taliban, like the BBC and all that shit. The Taliban and it's like, what are you doing? You're meant to do your job. You're not meant to deliberately do something as a fuck you to them. That is the worst possible way to go about this process. Because they did in 2000. They shut it down completely. 95% of the world's heroin comes from Afghanistan. And in 2000, they stopped it. And then, of course, by 2003, so it went down by like 90%. And so, of course, when the war began, the heroin and opium production went back up. I'm not going to go into the Taliban situation. It's unbelievably complex. David Myatt had a very interesting perspective on the Taliban. As I can't tell you when or how, Myatt, when he was a Muslim, traveled to Central Asia and South Asia and the Middle East, specifically Afghanistan, which I can't tell you when because it's for very obvious fucking reasons. Myatt also, so he talked to quite a few prominent people. He also went to Iran, which is, from my knowledge, one of the only countries that denies the Holocaust, which is something David Matt denies. Myatt is an amazing, complex individual. And it's very understandable why O9A are so incorporate so much of his work. And he's just... I'm putting a theory out there that I have with Myatt, and that is, Myatt always has and always will be a Nazi. That has not changed. Doesn't mean he's an extremist. I'm just saying he always has and always will be a Nazi. He's still a Nazi. When he was a Muslim, he was still a Nazi. He, in my interview with Myatt, mentioned a man called Otto Ernst Riemer, who was a prominent Nazi SS officer who went to the Middle East and essentially embedded himself in many tyrannical regimes throughout his life. And I believe that the Myatt I should say evolutionary notion that Islam and neo-Nazis need to, stick together, which has a historical precedent, given the Albanian SS, the Bosnian SS, there were a lot of Muslim SS units during World War II, which Myatt uses in his National Socialist writings a lot as method. But Otto Ernst Riemer, I believe, was Myatt's mentor. And because he was in Egypt at the time, and Myatt would always go to Egypt for some reason, over and over again. And it clicked. Oh yeah, he's going there to meet Riemer. Because he admitted to meeting Riemer. His frequent trips to Egypt. Yeah, I'm giving you something that now that probably nobody knows. This is still, though, speculation on my end, but with the information that I have, it makes sense. Otto Ernst Riemer, by proxy of David Myatt, was helping the National Socialist movements in the UK to try and unite Islamic extremists with the Nazi extremists, because they have the same common enemy, which is Israel, which is, in their perspective, Zog. So, Riemer, look him up. I need to write an article on the man, but most people seem to think, because I have demystified Myatt and simplified it to a degree, where the mythology, and Myatt has made fun of me in correspondence to me before. He hates that I keep using the word idea of him that has been hijacked, and that the idea of David Myatt is now reality. And Myatt is very uncomfortable with that idea. And so when I was getting information from him about Combat 18's early days, he said something. He would put in japes to use. I can't help it. When you communicate with people for a certain period of time, you end up picking up a lot of words. I keep using Praxis these days because of the Remnant O9A. I keep using Apropos instead of regarding. It's become a habit. And I also leave it as kind of a joke, which is probably a stupid idea because it makes me look far more, how should I put this? It can be easily misconstrued. And the whole thing with Jake Hanrahan started because I made a joke that he misunderstood, where I capitalized the word. You have to see things from multiple angles. And he assumed that I was, yeah. You see, I'm not exactly the most. I make a lot of stupid mistakes. Trust me on that. And yeah, so Hanrahan and I have had a form of sort of reconciliation, and which I like. But yeah, as a contact put it to me who has no animosity towards Hanrahan, Hanrahan seems to behave like the O9A are running circles around him, but he's running circles around himself, and that's true. And Hanrahan, I have respect for his work. However, we have a huge disagreement regarding ONA because Hanrahan's major problem is he doesn't have contacts because he's confrontational, and I keep bringing this up. My absolutely undistinguished spook background a very long time ago is my operational praxis of how I operate as a journalist, where I am having a network of assets essentially that I have to manage and try and get the most accurate information, build trust, all of that stuff. Whereas where I put aside any of my personal beliefs, because I've sat down with killers and people who have done horrendous things. Somebody who has an ideological difference to me, say, is a neo-Nazi, or is homophobic, or is racist. That's none of my business. I ignore that and get to what is relevant. And I don't judge that person. They are entitled to believe what they will. It is not my job to be moralistic on that. Modern journalists interview pedophiles in prison, yet I get more shit because I will go and talk to far-right extremists. A far-right extremist, to me, is in no way, shape, or form anything like a pedophile. But still, if I find that very difficult. Yeah, Burroughs was a spook, 100%. Why do you think everything I do is almost a reference to William S. Burroughs? Thank you for bringing him up, because when I was mentioning occultists being spooks, yeah, Burroughs was a spook. I mean, Interzone literally means international zone. Burroughs wrote Naked Lunch and essentially Soft Machine overexpresses and a ticket that exploded during his morphine period in Tunisia's international zone. He also met a lot of interesting Nazis there, because the international zone there at the time harbored a lot of interesting people. And Burroughs was probably the first person to do oxycodone, better known as OxyContin, which was utilized by the Nazis. But he even warned people involved in the UK of oxycodone. And oxycodone really started the opioid epidemic in Australia and America. OxyContin was the main thing that like maybe I haven't had my morphine problem since it ended after what I call in my Captagon article, Heart of Darkness period. somewhere I won't mention in Central and South Asia, where I was where on my worst days, I put in the article on my worst days, daily drug use. That was only the over-the-counter stuff that, my legal drug use during that period. In 2019, 2020, in the article, I mentioned that I was taking on my worst day, my daily drug routine of over-the-counter drugs in my heart of darkness period in Central South Asia was one 10-gram bottle of Munani Kunami Ridwan Was with Kasar tablets, an Unani medicine, traditional Islamic medicine from South and Central Asia that consisted mostly of opium, tablets taken in inconsistent intervals throughout the day until the bottle was empty. One box of Rumorph 10, morphine sulfate 10 milligram tablets, 100 tablets, a large quantity spread out in 4 doses orally over the day, and the remainder taken in inconsistent intervals. Atarax, hydroxyzine hydrochloride tablets, an antihistamine medication which I used mostly as an opioid potentator, which increases the oral bioavailability and metabolism of morphine when co-administered to make the morphine stronger. 5 tablets taken 4 times a day with the morphine. Also helped with allergies and potential side effects produced by opium. Soma, I can never pronounce this one. Prodol, 500 milligram tablets, a sedative, hypnotic, muscle relaxant similar to barbiturates and quaaludes. 2 tablets taken with the 4 main morphine doses used as an opioid potentator along with the Atarax. I even took pictures of this shit in the article. So this was my worst day during that horrible period. That was the last time I abused drugs, and that was overseas. That was just the over-the-counter stuff. Soma coma. Yeah, the soma was purely to make the morphine is not very orally bioavailable. I was in horrible living conditions where there is no safe drinking water. Not even the bottled water is safe. There is no safe food to eat because there is no food handling preparations. You go to a grocery store, nothing has been handled properly. So to stop dysentery, I was initially taking those opium tablets. But then my entire life fell apart. And I was sort of, essentially, my wife separated with me, and then I stopped giving a shit and was just, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but I had cartons of Saudi Arabia Marlboro Red cigarettes. I'd stand on the roof of this building watching dogs kill each other in the street at night, not realizing that the mosquitoes were flying up the back of my shirt, which was a business shirt, because the spray was on my feet and hands and shit. And I got malaria. So I was kind of, which is normal. Oh, fuck. So yeah. I stopped giving a shit, and I just got, and I was living in an Islamic community too. It got bad. It got really bad. I can't go into it. And then it led to an even worse situation that I can't go into, mostly for privacy reasons of other people involved. Everything makes me look like some kind of foreign intelligence officer for ACO. So not ACO, for ACES. However, why the fuck would they hire someone like me who cyclically would just into morphine addiction? So yeah, I had to take the Soma. I just got the Soma online. They didn't give a fuck. I walked into the pharmacy And I'm white. I'm wearing a suit. Here's 100 tablets of morphine for you today. Thank you. I needed that. I'll see you tomorrow. Got the opium delivered from a Islamic medicine website, and the Atarax was over the counter. I of course couldn't inject anything because that was absolutely. I probably would have died if I put fucking even bottled water into a needle to shoot morphine. Yeah. Oh, I got. Funnily enough, when I stopped this, I went to another country, right? I was taking essentially 10 grams of opium on my worst day a day, along with up to 1,000 milligrams of morphine with it. And then I just suddenly, but that was my worst day. Usually it was sort of every 3 days I would spread that out. On my worst day is when I did that. I went to another country and stopped, and I got absolutely no withdrawal. It was the first time in my entire life where I was hitting it hard for a long enough period of time, and no withdrawals. Nothing. Absolutely amazing. I think it's because opium taken orally is because it's natural. It balances itself out with the 5 other main and I wasn't smoking it, and because I wasn't shooting morphine. Still, I can't explain how I didn't have morphine withdrawals. I don't know why. Magic. Or I'm just so fucking Sigma that, yeah. No, I'm kidding. That was the last time. So it's been 3 years since I have had those cyclical, as I mentioned in that article, morphine addiction that would just prop up out of nowhere. And yeah, so going to overseas made it pretty fucking easy to and cheap. But yeah, it is good. I sustained a lot of injuries overseas where I have lost significant mobility, things like that. Quite serious injuries. So I'm in constant pain all the time. I'm on an opioid painkiller. However, I'm on such a low fucking dose. It's just enough for me to function, but not enough to even fucking properly deal with the pain. And I quit smoking. During that period, I was smoking 3 Saudi Arabian Marlboro Red cigarette packets a day. I'd smoke 5 fucking cigarettes in a row, minimum. Almost. I was almost in the Middle East. Yeah. A guy that was possibly Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula tried to get me to go into a masjid with him, right? But I noticed something. He saw my tattoo. As I said, I always was dressed quite professionally, but you can see that little bit And that's what sort of tipped me off that of him being very dangerous individual, because he was kind of like, that's unfortunate. And we're talking about Islam, and I was a Muslim at the time. However, he was definitely trying to lure me because no one else was going there, even though it was time for prayer. This area, I can't go into the context, but I decided to not go. I'm pretty sure I would have been in big trouble if I went in there. Absolutely. And a lot of violence occurred later when I was overseas, which caused a lot of the injuries that I have had to deal with. I mean, most of my fingers and fucked, broken knuckles. If you see that one and you compare it to that one, that's shattered, bent. Not going to go into it all. My arm is completely fucked and bent. I can only, I'm now able to lift my arm up this high. I used to be able to lift it up like a normal person. I would make a very poor Nazi because I actually physically can't, because of the injuries I sustained in a violent altercation, do a Nazi salute, because I can't lift my right arm higher than this. And even that's been 3 years of rehabilitation. And that's, yeah. Yeah, Australia, I can't get that here. I would use Kratom if I was able to access that in Australia. Australia has the strictest fucking customs and some of the strictest laws with all this. It's either get prescribed or get heroin. There's no middle ground here. I can go and get heroin in 2 seconds. Not going to do that. Buprenorphine is Subutex is okay, but I get bad side effects from buprenorphine, and I'm not ever going on the program, as it's called here. Suboxone I've been forced on before during a withdrawal, and it just gave me the most horrendous side effects because it turns out that I can't tolerate naloxone, even though they say it's not bioavailable, or it is. So I get terrible side effects from buprenorphine, especially Suboxone. Yeah, so essentially it's I have to deal with the pain, be on a very weak opiate, and I don't want to be on fucking morphine and feel it, because to get pain relief, you need enough to actually feel the high a little bit. I don't get that from what I'm on. I'm on tapentadol, which is very effective, to be honest, but I feel nothing, though I am deliberately on the lowest dose possible I can be on to function. But still, yeah, if I went to my pain specialist, and even though I'm still in pain and wanted more, I would be moved to an addiction specialist and put on either methadone or Suboxone. Not doing that. Would rather be in pain. Not in any need to feel that effect. It's similar to tramadol. Yeah. Yeah. People on the program, in some states, you have to go to the pharmacy literally every single day to get dosed. And after 6 months, you get one takeaway a week. It is really bad in some states in Australia. People are, and I could, it's slavery. It's imprisonment going on the program. Especially with methadone, which is the most horrible thing that has ever been created, because you're on methadone and all of a sudden, even on just a low dose like 40 milligrams, after a month or so, it builds up so much in your system that your tolerance goes from being sort of the like 100 or something milligrams of morphine to being 1,000 milligrams of morphine a day, because it builds up in your system. So you can't just jump off it. You're fucked. And the withdrawals of methadone are worse than anything people could ever comprehend. Methadone saves lives, but fuck, methadone withdrawal is the worst possible thing. Torture. Exactly. Which is why I am content on my low dose of tapentadol, because my only other options are gray area, not doing that, not breaking trust. I have made mistakes enough in my life by this point to go, okay, don't do that. Be a good boy. And that's why I don't do high risk things as much. But this, I guess, is a good way for me to get things out of life, because I deliberately choose. Yeah, exactly. It is inadvertently pathemathos in action. Absolutely. And yeah, because I need a sort of high stress, high intensity environment to function, in a sense of to thrive. I'm not good in I would not make a very good ONA person, because I'm very bad at infiltrating normal society. Very bad. I just cause nothing but trouble. I don't give a shit anymore, because I have completely nothing to do with any of this. It's actually because of the Serbian thing. Being put in a very any career that I may or may not have had, maybe involving academia, is now gone, because of the assumption of must be a son of a war criminal, Serbian ethno-fascist, because the gatekeepers in the field of work I was doing were all people who are on the fucking war crime tribunals of Serbian war criminals in Bosnia and Kosovo. And boy, did I fuck up by making knowing that I'm connected to Serbia. Yeah, I've completely said what I needed to say. This last hour has nothing to do with the ONA, I guess. So I do apologize for that, for not staying on topic. I guess I would recommend if someone could do me a favor, YouTube has that thing where you can chapter shit. If someone can fucking chapter whenever I'm talking about ONA, so people can skip all this bullshit that I'm doing because there's nothing to do with it. No, it's okay. I have a tendency to do a Hunter S. Thompson and insert myself into the story inadvertently. So, to summarize, I've gone through the pretenders and thoroughly addressed that issue and broke, though I doubt anybody will. Thanks. I don't read names out because all this chat is going to be hidden after this, because I don't want people's identities to be. That's why I'm not reading out names. That's my new policy. I don't want people's identities to be in any way known. So, and I also thank you to SF, I can say that, for paying me on for subscribing to me on Patreon. I thoroughly appreciate it. As I wish to expand this operation and work and make a living off it, and not in a way like I have been very critical of people using O9A to launch careers. If I do have a career, yes, inadvertently, it is directly ONA that would have launched it, but all that really happened is they gave me the opportunity to do what I actually really wanted to do anyway. So yeah, the Roblox thing, do not contact anybody. That is an issue that is being thoroughly investigated. Temple of Blood people, you know my position. People whom are associated with ONA.org and modern Fenria publications, you know my position. I had to make it very clear what my position is, because I literally get people who think that I am some fucking, there's that Sam Hyde video that's very funny where he is on a date and he talks about being Hitler's number one guy. Like, man, talking. I always wanted to. If he in occupied France, so chat. Do you know the video that I'm fucking talking about, where Sam Hyde, it's in black and white, he's on a date? Any of you know it? And he goes on and on to this woman about, how can you say no? I've been Hitler's number one guy, man. It's very funny. Yes, you're absolutely right. The real thing, ONA are, or the remnants, which I keep referring to them as now, they're all within their 60s and 70s. However, ONA still exists in that area. The collective is still functioning with young members. And to be honest, the most brilliant correspondences I have ever had with people have been from these people. They're some of the most brilliant people I have ever communicated with. And that's saying something. And so I'm not endorsing them, because nobody is going to be able to actually be them. However, what they are needed to be known, I hope I've communicated that okay. They're not the Nazi thing. They're not necessarily Nazis. Oh yeah. But yeah, people think that I'm like, Myatt's number one guy for a period, mostly because of Hanrahan and then schizo posters on Twitter who believed that, and because of my methods being these days not conventional. Oh yeah, well, one of the most brilliant people I know is a Jewish man in Israel. It's a funny dynamic of the bizarreness of my life, but I'm so used to. As I said, even as a Muslim, I was an anti-Semitic. That was the only thing that I just don't, not really. I don't fucking care. I don't believe the Zog stuff. As my friend in Israel said, how the fuck can we run the world when we can't even run our own fucking country? The systems of control have been in place for a very, very long time. Who put it there is irrelevant. The people running it are not in any way, shape, or form elites. The systems of control, nonetheless, exist and have to be maneuvered within, I guess, is my perspective. Hopefully, nobody's going to, TOB people are going to try and kill me. Hopefully, I'm not going to be slandered to. But yeah, my earlier intensity, I just felt it was important. And I am going to be taking a break because I have been doing this and on little sleep, very stressed for multiple reasons. So my work is going to have a diminished quality if I do not step back for a bit. So probably for a week, I am going to be, after this stream, gone. I'm going to come back after a week, but that gives me time to deal with certain things in my personal life and chill out, so I'm not so intense. Because that old quote, you stare into the abyss looks back. Information is like that. Journalists have a habit of getting quite dangerous circumstances and stressful situations, especially independent and investigative journalists. I mean, Maury is a great example of this, where it fucking burns you out and you need to step back because it's dark. And I literally am constantly thinking of how the fuck am I going to do this with this information? When I have to partition it and disappear. So yeah, otherwise, yeah, work will be diminished and I will cause too many problems and make too many mistakes. I've been very confrontational and intense at the beginning of this, but that was necessary. I will be making more articulate videos pretty much as soon as I've had my break. The Socrates thing, I would happily do it. I'm just giving him a platform because, we're friends. However, because of the ONA stuff recently, I don't want him to be targeted because by dickheads. So it's not that I'm going to be doing it. He understands that I don't want legitimately dangerous and manipulative people to come in and possibly really try fuck him up. So I'm trying to work out what to do about that situation. And I know it's fucking absolutely bizarre for somebody who does my kind of work to be associated with my previous stuff. I don't care. As long as the quality of my information is good, it does not matter to me. I know that perception is everything. However, Jacob Sockness has helped me greatly. I am not going to make the mistake of forgetting the people who helped me on my journey. Yeah. You think Christian was framed? I'm not going to go into Christian. If I wanted to really shill, I would have just made videos doing the exact same thing I did with Christian to every other possible fucking boring person. I don't have time to look into that, because to look into people like Cyrix and that Cobra guy and 10 years of their internet history, when I actually have really, really good networking and contacts. Yeah, so I stopped associating with any of that because I never intended to talk about that stuff. I was just using Christian as a way to put out ideas about jinn whilst I was going through a very difficult time and locked in a horrible apartment during those videos during COVID. I essentially just was doing it as an outlet because my I had just was settled a divorce, all that kind of shit. And I couldn't leave my apartment. And I had the most annoying stoner next door neighbor whom I wanted to murder because in Melbourne, we were locked down over and over again. My only human interaction, I couldn't, because you couldn't leave within 5 kilometers, was with the guy I bought cigarettes off. ADF, but the Australian Defence Force. I don't look into I can't believe that stuff is still. It's boring. It is. Who gives a fuck about that when there is so much more? It's a distraction. And there is so much more going on and more complex and interesting people to look into who have had far more interesting lives. Imagine if the kiwi farms focused on getting information about, people like David Myatt, instead of a guy who fucked his mum with dementia. It's funny, this whole Pathy-Mathos journey of mine, Hanrahan, if you hear that, do not take that out of context. I began worried about the kiwi farms, but I'm too boring for the kiwi farms. I know I'm on there as a side note in Sockness's thing, but I don't care. I don't have any fear of. I used to be a bit worried they might fuck me over. The only thing I'm worried about with the kiwi farms is them doxing me or something. But I would more be worried because I actually deal with people, some of whom may be dangerous, rather than so I have no worry about them. These days, it's interesting. In fact, my biggest worry is the Australian intelligence services misunderstanding everything I do. Oh, I am archived, but I doubt any of this stuff is. Anyway, I've gotten so off topic. It's gone on for quite a while. I really appreciate everybody jumping on. I said what I had to say. So to summarize, Roblox, a lot of horrible things happening there. ONA have very specific views on sexuality based upon their evolutionary system of how things are. And in the context of that, it makes sense. However, that does not mean you cannot be ONA in your own circles. Don't do anything or take me as an authority. I'm only talking to the best of my knowledge on the information given by a very specific groups of people in the UK. Nobody else. And if Hanrahan, if you're watching, the O9A don't have an issue with you, the younger. It's the older ones, because of your treatment of David Myatt being so confrontational. But I doubt any of them would contact you anymore because they don't trust you. I know you think I'm naive, but I am getting to the right people, and I hope you understand. Just because my methodology is different doesn't mean that I'm a Nazi or all that shit. Anyway, I am absolutely exhausted. Whoever was mentioning the Niner goth girls, bring them on. In the leave of absence I'm going to have to be taking to reorientate myself for a week. Yeah, get them in. I need that'll help. Play on my ego, and that'll be fun actually. Anyway, thank you. I hope. I really actually don't care what people will think. I said what needed to be said, and thank you all, and I appreciate the support of my work. And I have Patreon, yes. I have only set it up. Most of it is just inside jokes about from Naked Lunch. I've only set it for $3 Australian because I have nothing to offer other than in the future, private streams and Q&As, and it's just I don't have the time to set up Discord and stuff like that. I'd need actual people to help me out. But I do wish to expand this operation. I have other people that I want to bring in, and yeah, so any support would be fantastic. I don't have Instagram. If there's anybody, and yes, I do have Telegram, but I'm not gonna. I get too many messages as it is. So I have to focus on what needs to be said and done. And then I try and get back to people. And yeah, just know it's becoming increasingly difficult for me to actually reply to people because I have the network, and then I have real life stuff, and then I have people who are cool people, but I have to prioritize. So I'm terrible at getting back to people. My Twitter is a nightmare, mostly of accelerationist far-right extremists desperately hoping for me to become one of them. But they do make funny jokes, so that kind of makes up for it. And spooks, follow me. naturally. And yeah, the O9A is an evolutionary perspective. The current paradigm in ONA or O9A perspective is de-evolving, and they're very interested in social engineering, and they're very based with regards to the how society is designed to keep the tax paradigm, and people have no attention spans. A lot of really simple kind of view that is right to the point. If anyone tries to recruit you, if anyone refers that they have a Nexion, doesn't mean not to get involved. Just don't run around Oxfordshire trying to find ONA. You're not going to find them. And finally, I'm not responsible for what people think about this information I've given. That isn't through investigative work. I have not distributed terrorist propaganda in any way, shape, or form. And if anything is done to me, I have done nothing but what journalism is, and it would spark an outcry. Maybe easy to slander me, but I have lawyers. This is not a joke, and I take this work very, very seriously. So, yeah, thank you all very much. And when I come back from this leave of absence I have to take, I hope the work I do will be of interest. And yeah, I'm not disappearing. I just desperately need to step back for a bit. So thank you all. I'll be back in a week. And I appreciate the support and people not being just, irrelevant edgelords and things like that. So yeah, I better go. I've gone off topic for way too long. But yeah, as Thelemites would say, 93s.